Indeed, I am no longer missing in action. I am quite found and ready to continue. I'm back in action, as it were. Maybe not, but don't tell anyone that. But do tell everyone that this is the Mississippi King welcoming y'all back to my next LP, actually, which is Mega Man X4. And, yep, it's that game. The one with all of the anime cutscenes and the fantastic music. Seriously, people can say what they will about this game's voice acting. It also has infamous voice acting. But the music to this game, bar none, it's my favorite in the X series. I love this soundtrack so much, and right off the bat we're listening to an incredible intro song. I'll talk more about my preferences for the intro song in the future, but yep, we're back, and this time we've moved on to the next in the X series. A lot of people really like this game, with good reason. Many people say it's their favorite or second favorite in the series. I would say that it's actually my favorite. I'll talk more about that later. So, of course, first thing you want to do is to go into the controls and remap everything, because, yeah, I'm not really a fan of the default controls, but this time, since we've moved on to the PlayStation and Sega Saturn, the Sega Saturn version is basically identical to this, unlike in Mega Man 8, where it had some noticeable differences. And since we've moved on to the PlayStation, we have more buttons. So you may have noticed that there are two options labeled as X-Buster. What does that mean? Well, good news. This game, just like Mega Man 8, allows you to fire your default weapon while a special weapon is equipped. That is awesome. And fortunately, it becomes a staple for the next game. So now we're given a choice between X and 0. This is actually a first. Now, for this playthrough, I'm going to play as X. More on that later. But I'll bet they've hired the most top-tier voice actors in the world, or I guess, you know, you could play the Mega Man 8 route and just hire a bunch of random nobodies off the street. I guess that works too. The voice acting is quite infamous in this game. So infamous that I'm actually going to make a list of jokes that I could make about this scene after it's over. Anyway, I'm actually going to upload two videos in this playthrough side by side. First, the X playthrough, and then the 0 playthrough. And I will be including some differences, like I'll be including some omitted lines.
You will change your mind soon, I assure you.
In boss dialogue, that is. Anyway, I think now it's finally time to talk about the top 5 jokes I could make about this scene.
Number 5.
Oh sure, let's talk with this guy in a creepy brown cloak. That never goes poorly.
Number 4.
Yep, that laugh's definitely the mark of a very trustworthy fellow.
Number 3.
Speaking of which, don't mind me, I'm just trying to rob a bank. Yes, I'm wearing a creepy cloak, I've got a maniacal laugh, I'm talking about wiping out all enemies in sight, and there are menacing scars on my face, but you can trust me, really.
Number 2.
Remove yourself from my sight.
Remove yourself from my sight? Then why did you even bother seeing him in the first place?
Number 1.
On that note, why are you even bothering trying to convince the general when you're just going to force him to do what you want? And because there's voice acting, I won't have to voice the characters. Well, okay, maybe some, but I'm actually not going to, voice them quite as much. I'm definitely not going to voice every line in the game, but a few significant ones, yes. And, now we're here at the Sky Lagoon. Now, something that should be mentioned, this game, the footage that, I'm recording is being done in 30 frames per second, and as such, I recently found out something really stupid. If you record in 30 frames per second and then render in 60 frames per second, then what happens is that it only displays each frame twice. It doesn't actually make it 60 frames per second, and like a dumbass, I just decided to do it that way for a lot of games, although some that I've recorded are indeed in 60 frames per second, like The Revenge of Shinobi, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, back to the game. We're tackling the Sky Lagoon, the opening stage to X4. And can I just say that the theme for X in the Sky Lagoon is epic. It's probably my favorite opening stage theme in the series. As I've said before, this game has my favorite soundtrack in the X series. Whereas previous soundtracks in the X series had to choose between sounding either heroic or cool, this game manages to achieve the perfect balance between both, and as such, its soundtrack reigns supreme in my eyes. So yeah, we're almost done here with the Sky Lagoon. Your Dragoon from the 14th unit.
This isn't good, X. That Maverick just destroyed the power reactor.
What? And the Sky Lagoon will come crashing into the ground.
It's too late, X. It's time I made my escape. I'd suggest you do the same. Don't do anything reckless on the way out, okay?
The city below will soon become a sea of flames. Many people will perish. I have no choice but to escape from here and head to the city below. So we're done with the first half, but that's another thing that this game introduces. So this is the second half of the Sky Lagoon. What? The city has been completely destroyed. They were innocent people. I won't forget this. So this game actually introduces the concept of multiple areas in each stage. And so once you beat one part of the stage, you get a full refill of life and weapon energy, so it's also like Mega Man 8 in that regard. There are a lot of similarities with Mega Man 8, for that matter, and that's going to be coming up more as we go on. Anyway, this soundtrack is just incredibly diverse, and I just love the way that it sounds, and it allows for some pretty great pieces. They can end up sounding very distinct, and it gives each stage its own identity, and that's really cool. Anyway, the boss to this stage, the intro boss, is called Eregion. And yes, it's not Eregion, it's Eregion. Apparently that's actually a Tolkien reference, because Eregion was one of the regions of the Noldor, and it was apparently sacked by Sauron, which is kind of interesting. It was later known as Hollin, Yes, it's a very easy boss, just like the previous intro stage bosses. I mean, what did you expect at this point? This boss is so easy that I don't even really bother memorizing his pattern. He's so easy that you can pretty much tank it all the way to the end. It's just your attacks do so much damage, and he does so little damage to you that he's quite a pushover. That's a running theme with the intro bosses. They're very easy in the X series.
Who are you? I'm the Colonel of the Repliforce.
Has the Repliforce been occupying this area?
What are you talking about? I only came to save my sister. The army responsible for all the violence in this region is not the Repliforce.
Nevertheless, I want you to disarm and follow me back to the HQ.
Never. You're asking my soldiers to drop their weapons. The only time we drop our weapons is when we aren't able to fight any longer.
But you will be regarded a Maverick, and treated as such.
Do as you will. The Repliforce would sooner fight and die than discard our pride. Consider us Mavericks if this is what you wish.
Wait, calm down, Colonel! What the? Something's got to give, otherwise the entire Repliforce will be considered to be Mavericks. Oh boy, it's gotta be one of those stories. Yep, for some reason, everyone in this story just kind of is a complete idiot. I've praised this game a lot, and there's a lot to come that I'll be praising it for, but that is not one of the things I'll be praising. The story is rather laughable. The story is stupid for reasons that we'll get into more later. Anyway, since I'm talking over the cutscenes, like in Mega Man 8, I'm going to subtitle them so that y'all can tell what's going on. And, of course, this voice acting is terrible. Mostly the issue isn't that, like, they mispronounce things, like how bass was called bass, but still, it's kind of laughable, the performances, and once again, the voices are horribly unfitting. Would you believe me if I told you that this isn't even the worst voice acting in the Mega Man series? We'll get to that. Believe me, we will get to that. Trust me. I'll probably even, make another list of jokes to make about this scene, too.
The general has finally
That
taken
laugh, though. That laugh is just so goofy. It's hilarious.
From here on out.
Yep, that's it for this cutscene. However, it's now time for the top 5 jokes about this scene.
Number 5.
Brave soldiers of Repliforce, we have all been wrongfully judged as
If you heard this voice, would you assume it comes from a behemoth robot? That voice sounds way too tiny.
Number 4.
But remember, this is neither about insurrection nor rebellion against our human creators.
Neither about insurrection nor rebellion against our human creators. Oh, I guess that explains all of this. Remember this line for later, it gets even stupider.
Number 3.
I wonder who that could be. Maybe he's the puppet master behind the top secret, no-good Christian shaman Buddhist cult cabal of South Korea bent on instilling a crypto-fascist. Damn it! I'd like to tell that joke without being shot in the shoulder, you assholes!
Number 2.
insurrection nor
X
rebellion
has a new
against our
enemy.
human creator.
Communism!
This is about
Okay, it's more based on fascism. And that
survival.
fascist
Together we
imagery
will
goes
build our
absolutely
nation.
nowhere and doesn't add any depth to the story. Hey, wait a minute. Doesn't that make Repliforce the top secret, no good Christian shaman Buddhist cult couple of South Korea bent on instilling a
Remember, this is neither about
crypto-fascist
insecurity.
dictatorial system of the man upon the South Korean people? Nothing? You're not gonna shoot me or anything? Okay, just asking.
Number 1.
Closely from here on out.
Your shrimp overlords reign supreme above the earth. You shall be reduced to rubble and grovel before me. All shall love me and despair.
Oh, snap! This has gone too far! Stop the video before the world ends! Stop the video! It has to— I'm just kidding, of course the video's not over just yet. So, yeah, that's it. Now, we're here at the stage select, and we're introduced to Double, who is X's operator in this playthrough. And he's a character unique to X's playthrough. You don't run into him at all as Zero. So that's interesting. So, yeah, we have a bunch new Mavericks, quite a bit to fight, and this time they're accompanied by introductions to their stages, which is kind of unnecessary, and it doesn't really add much, but whatever. It doesn't really bother me that much, trust me. When it comes to, like, slowing down the game, there are much worse offenders than this game. Trust me. We'll get to that. In fact, it's the same game that we'll be talking about, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to have a field day when we get to that train wreck, but for now we'll enjoy the series while it remains good. And trust me, it won't always remain good. But yeah, we have a bunch new Mavericks to fight, so let's go over them real quick. It's a pretty good set of bosses, if I do say so myself. They're very enjoyable to fight, I must admit. We have Web Spider, Cyber Peacock, Storm Owl, Magma Dragoon, Frost Walrus, Slash Beast, Split Mushroom, and Jet Stingray. So I'm actually going to fight a Web Spider first, because his stage is the one that has the leg parts. Agility and speed, as always, that is like my #1 priority. Just improve my agility in any way possible, and that's my #1 goal here. That takes priority over attack and defense any day. Now, the music to this stage is admittedly not one of my favorites, but it's still pretty decent. Anyway, the light capsule is down here.
This battle should never have happened, X. Why must Reploids fight each other? Why do these peacekeepers persist in fighting each other? This must be some sort of mistake. X, enter this capsule. Equip with this to discover the truth. Equip with this boot module and jump twice in the air to hover. You can move either left or right and will remain airborne for a few moments. It is effective for negotiating through higher and more dangerous terrain. Stop this tragic war as soon as possible, X.
Now, what this capsule doesn't say is that this also grants you the ability to air dash, so you can actually use that to hover, indeed, as the message says, and get this, you press the button twice and you hover. You don't hold the button down, which, you know, is pretty good design. Clearly they wouldn't discard that lesson and make it so that if you hold down the button, then you'd end up like plummeting to your doom if you unintentionally hold it down for too long. They would never do that. In all seriousness, the music for the Dr. Light capsules in this game is my favorite Dr. Light capsule theme in the series, because I just like the mood that it evokes. Anyway, now to talk about something that I really don't like. I am not a fan of what they did to the air dash, because it's like, for some reason it seems like whenever you use it, like, your momentum that would be caused by the air dash just sort of grinds to a halt for no reason, whereas in X2 and X3 this momentum was preserved, and you could use it to, like, speed through the air quickly. In this game, that's not really the case. You just kind of, after the air dash is over, it's like you go back to normal speed, and I don't like that. That's a minor thing, I know, but it is one thing that does bother me about this game. I kind of wish they kept it the same as X2 and X3. Anyway, stages in this game are actually broken up into two areas, two or more I should say, and once you get to one area, you actually get a checkpoint, and when you get to game over in that area, you restart at the beginning of that area. So lives in this game are almost completely meaningless, but not quite. It's not really the same thing as it is in X5, X6, or X7 for that matter. One thing that I have to mention is that this game has some truly fantastic level design. It's just got this really nice flow to it, and it just feels exciting and engaging throughout. Now, granted, this stage in particular isn't really one of my favorites in the game. Again, I'm just going through it because I really want the air dash. And it's not really my favorite stage, but trust me, we will be running into some great stage design later on in the game. Still, this stage ain't bad. I may read some of the Maverick lines, because this game actually introduces dialogue with the main Mavericks, which is a first, but mostly just the important ones are the ones I'll read. And on the info cards, as y'all can tell, I've added affiliation, which may seem redundant, except that these different Mavericks all belong to different parts of the Repliforce army. So, like, one's in the Navy and another is in the Repliforce Air Force or whatever it's called. There are actually 3 Mavericks in this roster that aren't affiliated with Repliforce in the slightest, so that's interesting. One thing that should be mentioned, this game actually has pre-battle lines with the Mavericks, but only in the Japanese version. The later end-stage bosses and I believe the mid-stage bosses, X, they all actually have voice lines in English, but for some reason they didn't like to translate the pre-battle lines for the Mavericks, and they just sort of cut them. In order to hear them, you have to watch me play through the game in the 0 playthrough. I've gotta keep them distinct somehow. But I'll make no secret about it, I do prefer playing as X. I just kind of prefer X's playstyle, you know? Plus, I also enjoy the weapons he has. Another reason I'm tackling Web Spider first is to get his weapon, the Lightning Web, which isn't really that great. So y'all may be wondering why I'm getting it, but it's actually important to get some other upgrades, some other, like, really good upgrades. So it's definitely worth having. I would not skip out on it, even ignoring, like, the leg parts. So it's a good idea to come to this stage first. Anyway, that will have to be it for this video. This is the Mississippi King signing out, and in the next episode, we'll tackle some more Mavericks and get even more great upgrades. So see y'all then.